welcome back everyone for day 2. We're here to continue with this introduction to deep feminine somatics. And my name is Dévashi Shakti. And the first day, yesterday, ended up being the overview quite extensive. And so today I have a feeling it will be less time, but let's see how we go. And before I invite you to open into this space with me, I want to say that even if you're listening to the replay of this, I'm really welcoming you to engage with community discussions around these themes, and especially on anywhere that you see the video on YouTube or wherever. But in the Somatic Feminine community group, that's a free group on Facebook, and all of these recordings are living in there. So you're welcome to type as you are listening, so you feel like you're participating more if you like. And if you happen to be here live, you can also type in the chat as we go as well, and I'll pay more attention to that at the end. Yes. And so because this topic of deep feminine somatics is all about feeling, it is all about connection with your body. And, you know, we obviously still very much valuing intellectual knowledge, but this is really about embodied knowledge. And so even when listening to what it's about, I'm inviting you to receive it, not just here, but to receive it into your body. Because some of these things are beyond linear ways of thinking, for sure. They are beyond what is normally considered like a normal or rational kind of experience. We're opening into the felt sense. We're opening into the mystery, into what's beyond the norm. And so to help create the space inside of you, because that's what it is. It's about creating, I'll just put my volume up properly. It's about creating space inside of you to receive what it is that you're hearing. And so to support us all feeling into that right now, I'm going to invite you to disengage from the screen a little and bring your attention in close to your body, or even to close your eyes if you wanted to. And while you're being with yourself right now, just taking a moment to notice how it is that you're feeling right now. If you were to say it out loud, what would that be? And just saying it to yourself inside right now. And placing a hand or both hands in contact with your body, with your skin, somewhere that feels good to you. And taking a moment to feel the sensation of your breath as it meets under your hands. And as you continue to breathe, almost like you're exaggerating the sensation of your breath, moving your hands a little, a way of deepening your breath. And whatever it is that you are feeling, just let it come out with a sigh or a sound. And feeling into that a few more times, and seeing if it helps you to locate yourself more within your body, with a sense of space opening up inside of you. And while your hands are still there on your body for a little bit longer, Just acknowledging the intelligence that lives here in your felt sense, in your body wisdom, in these non-verbal places that hold so much feeling, so much knowing, so much sensing. And in acknowledging this, you're just inviting this part of you to take up more space in your awareness right now. And with that, feel free to come into connection with me again as you're listening, or just stay within where you are if that feels better. Yesterday, there were some definitions shared of how I perceive the deep feminine, a way of explaining that, a way of explaining somatics, a way of explaining the deep feminine approach to somatics. And I also ended up explaining my definition of patriarchy in this context. And maybe the most important part of how what's natural to you as a woman in your female form has always been trying to lead you to embodiment through the lens of your deep feminine intelligence, this often unspoken for living awareness as it occurs through your female body. The realm of feeling and senses and instincts and intuition. What is normally hidden, what is normally in the subterranean layers underneath your subconscious. And these were the kind of things that were spoken to yesterday in the overview. So if you didn't catch that yet, it might be a good idea to take that in first and to give you a bit of a groundwork for what we're looking into today, to understand its relevance. And I saw that there was a question at the end yesterday in the chat that I didn't see. So I'm going to hopefully end up answering that in today's sharing. And if not, I'll get to it at the end of today. And the topic of today in day 2 is what the deep feminine approach opens up for you, what it allows for. Why would you explore this as a woman? And as we go into this, I want to remind you to, as you hear anything, because maybe you will hear something that makes you kind of stop and wonder about things. And that can be a moment, again, bring awareness in, check in with your breath, allow what you're hearing to take space inside of you. So this gets to be more than just knowledge that passes in and out. And if you want to really help integrate what's moving in you, that would be a good time to share, to communicate, to express yourself in the comments. So there might be anything that I say that brings that up for you. And rather than just wondering about it in your thinking, to be with it in this more feeling connected way will support you to have that maybe new awareness, have somewhere to land in you so that it gets to do its real work beyond just the thought. And so when it comes to female embodiment practice, this is something that I started out doing around 2005, a bit before that as well. And the way that I was sharing it at the time was entirely experiential. There were some teachings a little bit, but I was intentionally not giving a whole lot of that. So what was being shared in Tigress Yoga and after that in Sacred Female Yoga was more in the body experience. There wasn't a whole body of work around fully explaining it all. And so these inner teachings that I'm alluding to today are what has emerged from so many years being deep in the actual embodiment process, not just with myself, but in teaching and training lots of other women, having worked with thousands of women over the past few decades or more with this work, more than that. And what is really beautiful about this body of work that is the inner teachings, which is what I'm calling the deep feminine approach to somatic psychotherapy. It's now at this point very evolved, but it's like a continual co-creation amongst myself and each woman who engages with it and studies it and applies it to her life. So it's like a living body of work that just keeps clarifying itself before our eyes. Like it's literally emerging. It is a living template of how we can understand the way our female psyches, the way our female nervous systems really do work, what they actually need, how we can support ourselves shifting from one state to another, and letting this all happen, like I said yesterday, in an atmosphere that is not the normal clinical way. It has the clinical benefits, but it's in a more woman-friendly environment, if that makes sense. And I'll say a bit more about that today and tomorrow, actually. And I wanted to also mention, if you did see the overview, the day one of this intro to Deep Feminine Somatics, I wonder if you may have had the thought that, because, you know, I shared that personal example about like a mystical experience, a mystical expanded state of consciousness that happened through menstruation, and what that did to deconstruct the world view, just the lens that I was looking out at the world through at the time, and dismantled that patriarchal context to help me connect with the pre-patriarchal world, or the you know, the realm of wholeness, the realm of where our restored state is accessible as people, and in this case as women. If you had the thought, well, I didn't experience my blood, my body that way, you know, like, will that impact how I study or explore the deep feminine approach to somatic therapy? Is it right for me still? I wonder if anyone's had that thought, or also if you've had the thought that you're in menopause or you're post-menopause, and is that relevant? So please know that that example was just like one of many, and there could have been many others that I used, and I just shared that particular one example of menstruation to demonstrate that our female bodies are always trying and built, like organically, naturally built with this divine architecture that we've been formed in by the divine, to experience reality the way that we do, through this very organic feminine lens, and how that gets covered up and covered up and covered up when we're not in environments that value those senses, those feelings, those experiences. And so all ages, all life phases, this is utterly relevant still. And if you didn't experience these, I'm going to call them natural initiations that your female body goes through over life, over time, if you didn't experience your body in that way, you get to, basically you get to, with this deep feminine approach to somatic work, because it helps you to forge that deeper intimacy with this living feminine consciousness that runs through you. And side note, yesterday I attempted to go live with this day 2, and there was a full electrical blackout in my entire area for a few hours. So this is take 2 on day 2. And when I shared this moment yesterday, I was talking about this living feminine current that moves through all of us, through all of our bodies as women. I fully felt the movement of it in my body. It tingles all over my body. And some women that were here live were sharing about that in the chat as well, because it's not necessarily something that a woman expects to happen, but it's just what we are. It just is what's there in our natural state, underneath our conditioning, underneath our programming. And so the way that somatic embodiment, somatic therapy is shared in this context, it's embracing those natural female experiences that we're already having, and basically giving you steps and understandings of how to tap into it on that level. And I've been doing that with women a long time already. And even women that I'm gonna say like 20 or more years into their, again, using the example of menstruation, 25 years or something into their bleeding years, and they never experienced it like that, can begin to. Maybe not exactly like the example I gave, I'm not sure, it depends on them, right? But a dramatically, significantly different lived experience of it compared to all those years before. Because what happens, again, when this more invisible internalized patriarchy is going on, it just doesn't allow the space to explore it, to even value it, to even know that it exists in the first place. And so this is all about your relationship with your body, how you relate with yourself. And obviously that's relevant whatever age or stage of life that you're going through. It's about your connection with your sexual energy. It's about how you share sex and intimacy. It's about an embodied experience of spirituality, not just a conceptual one. And your connection to life and with the world is always going to be relevant, right? No matter where you're at, no matter your age. And so this deep feminine approach, I would honestly encourage any woman that wants to explore it to see how this beautiful realm of somatic science that especially some prominent male teachers have brought forward in the past 30 or so years, they're helping to give language to what is already actually going on. So I happen to be someone who was already experiencing some of these things before I found somatic science and nervous system wisdom and trauma therapy and all of these beautiful approaches and modalities. And so my connection with it is very much perceiving this whole beautiful world of somatic work through the lens of my female body's experience. And so, of course, that's how I share it with women. And so rather than it being like a beautiful, gentle, powerful technique that you get to share with other people, it gets to be more like a lived experience inside of you that's with you wherever you are, wherever you go, and for the rest of your life, because the way that you're learning it, the way that you're taking it in, is not just relating to it as a tool, as a technique to help everyone else with. It's primarily in this deep feminine space, it's primarily for your initiation deeper into womanhood that becomes prominently a part of who you are. And then who you are gets to be expressed and shared when you're, say, delivering a service with whatever somatic techniques may be in there. And so, yes, I mentioned yesterday how that is the case. but also the actual techniques are different as well. And I'll explain a bit more about that today in this session. And I just want to take a pause for a moment to invite you to just reconnect with yourself while you're listening and just check in. Okay, is my body, am I giving my body space to hear this, not just my mind? And anything that might be bringing up, please just be present with that part of yourself and be really gentle, really, really kind with you as you're personally reflecting on anything that it might bring up for you and hearing this. And so the deep feminine approach to somatics is about the chance to learn somatic wisdom in context with your female experience. And you get to learn all the therapeutic terminology around the human nervous system and trauma and more. But you also get other terminologies that don't even exist in those, I'm going to say, more traditional therapy spaces, because it's not their intention to work with the female experience in the way that we do at Somatic Feminine. So why would you do this beyond what I've already explained? Why would you take this journey? Why would you differentiate the regular or more traditional approach to somatic therapy as opposed to this deep feminine one? Because both create intimacy with self, but this one is very specifically around providing entry points into an embodied experience of yourself as a woman in the ways that are very relevant to your actual daily life. And within that, one of the things that gets to arise from taking this journey is a beautiful reverence for primordial feminine consciousness. And I'm going to explain that as the current that moves through your body and your being as a woman, the life force, the creative birthing frequency that is like that mother goddess consciousness that was mentioned yesterday. There's an actual visceral, tangible, inner body experience of that. And I think that most women don't expect to have that felt sense. And yet they all get to find that it's possible for them. So there's a primal awakening element in the deep feminine approach that makes it really quite distinctly different. And in the way that I've been working with this, and again, if I use the example of the embodiment practice before this extensive inner teachings got developed, it was very much the connection of the primal, and so the primal and mystical. And in that, it helps us through our bodies in a very grounded way, open to the multidimensional realm. And why I think that that's especially important as more and more people become interested in practices that are about communication, with consciousness beyond human form, light language, all of these things, is because when someone is not anchored in their own presence, in their own body, rooted, what can happen is that you can end up connecting with energies that don't necessarily have full alignment with your soul. And it can just end up feeling very ungrounded sometimes, unless someone has done a lot of hard work, a lot of soul development before this life, maybe. But anyway, there is a direct link between these primal awakening experiences that we can feel viscerally in our bodies as women that help to open these higher states of consciousness. And I'm going to say from my experience, that happens in a way where it feels like you can totally trust it. because it is you. It's your own higher awareness. And there's something incredibly empowering about being able to have that direct access, not having to get it through someone else or even someone else, another being. You know, it's a higher dimensional aspect of yourself. And I don't actually go into that a whole lot inside the first 2 years actually of training, but I'm just mentioning today that this is possible because I think it's something important. And I can give a couple of student examples. In these deep feminine therapy techniques, there are beautiful, mystical, expanded experiences that have happened for women that help them inhabit their bodies much more fully. But the example I want to share with you right now is actually from the embodiment practice in the past. And it's quite powerful because there was no conceptual understanding that was shared with them. They just came and, you know, moved their bodies in a certain way, the way the whole group was. And really there was nothing imprinted into their minds about anything that I'm saying right now in this session. And when different women of different cultural backgrounds, different religious backgrounds, different ages at different times over the years get to have the same kind of mystical experience, that's something that really stands out. And so multiple times when women would report encountering a similar energy that they felt like they were directly engaging with by going so deep into their bodies, and that what they were happening to be describing is something very, very sacred. But it was like the same, which is so magical, so magical. And they were actually talking about the goddess Inanna without even knowing her name, without even knowing what it meant and the significance of that. And so this connection of the primal to the mystical, what I really want to say about that is it's something completely natural. It's something that feels unbelievably empowering. And that is something that each and every single woman does tend to have her own encounters with as she's ready, as it unfolds for her in her process. And so moving on to what more, like why would you explore this deep feminine approach? The sovereign experience of your own feelings, the differentiation of your emotional body from others around you, from your female lineage, from your mother, from anyone that strongly impacted you with their patterning. The sovereign experience of your own feelings has the power to center you deeply into your own felt sense as a woman. And that helps to awaken what I talked about in session 1 about this inner authority that helps you to make decisions from a deep place in your being that can guide you through your life in really important and pivotal times, more in alignment with what you're really here for. And that that alone, without anything else, is an incredible outcome, right? So having a direct connection with yourself, with other people, with important people around you, stronger connection to nature, to the divine, to the beyond human world, to your body, to your own humanity and the nuances of your feelings and sensations. These are all things that get to open right up and expand in titrated, gradual ways that make sense in your own reality. And one of the outcomes, one of the many outcomes actually, of that is actually getting what your purpose is, you know? And I know that there are a lot of women that are in this, or people in general, but in this case, women that have this like constant searching for what it is that they're meant to be doing. And we can actually rest into this place where it just becomes so obvious. And it's more about who you're being than what you're doing for a start, but then being guided from within by who you're being to your clear path. The amount of time that can dissolve for you, the amount of coherence and focus in your life that can give you is something quite extraordinary, right? Like how, yeah, if you know what it feels like to be a bit lost, to feel like you're just following this external maze of things around you and just going from one experience to the other in kind of a random way, to know that that's possible, for that to transform into a much more embodied whole experience is, I would say, definitely worthwhile. Yes. And another amazing outcome of the deep feminine approach to somatics is in relational issues, right? So when people would normally explore therapeutic teachings or go to therapy as an individual or as a couple, normally that's to kind of fix, in a sense, or address what's coming up on the surface. And rather than just putting out those fires, so to speak, what this approach does is it, again, centers you so deep into yourself as a woman that it helps you to really get where these relational ruptures and discordant things are even coming from in the first place, which normally has quite a bit to do with this programmed, more unnatural way of seeing yourself. And I was going to say relating with your body, but it's really about not relating with your body in that paradigm and in that way of thinking, in that way of not valuing your inner experience deeply enough to really have a connection to it. That creates a lot of discord in intimacy, in communication, in relationships. So this is a place where if you were someone who has or would consider getting therapy for, say, some kind of disconnect, some kind of issue in intimacy and sexuality in relationship, that there's a context in the deep feminine approach that allows you to not only address what it was that was coming up as something really dissatisfying or frustrating for you, and it helps you to reference yourself in a much more empowered part of yourself as a woman, and then relate from that place. So yes, this is like the context is everything in who you're experiencing yourself to be, beyond just the relating pattern that is showing up as an issue. And another thing, a different thing in the deep feminine approach, which is remarkably different to a more general or traditional approach in somatic therapy work, is that we're not shying away in this from feeling and naming and acknowledging natural connection to the divine. And it's understandable why that's not named in a lot of somatic education environments. And it's because they don't want to offend anyone's different belief system, maybe religious backgrounds as well. They don't want to alienate the community from each other. And so, but the outcome of when something is not named is it doesn't really get to be entered into as fully as it could be. It doesn't really get to be explored. And so without telling you what your experience should be, because that's not what we're about, we're just welcoming. We're welcoming your felt sense of your direct divine connection, the way that it occurs through your body. and actually making space for that to amplify, for that to be expressed even more fully and understood even more fully by you. And again, that's not from anyone dictating to you what it's called or how it should feel or what it should be. It's something that is very honored in your individual process. And in, again, this context of the deep feminine approach, something important that I want to say around this is that the coming from the energy field of post-trauma energetics is a pretty big difference here. Because although we share and teach about trauma release, trauma therapy, and those terminologies are all learned and understood, there are more terminologies when it comes to this, because there's a wider view when we're not just looking at healing trauma. We don't stop with the trauma healing. We have intentional methods for restoring wholeness and expanding nervous system states into what is coming up as organically desired and what your being is ready for. And so that is coming into the work of building capacity for states of wholeness or pleasure or whatever else it might be that's in alignment with where you're being guided from within to open up to. And in a lot of somatic therapy environments, there just really isn't the time and space to do that, because it's simply not what they're there for. It is about trauma therapy, and it's fantastic. But this is different, where we're consciously practicing in a way through titrated somatic techniques in these deep feminine methods for you to really inhabit states of wholeness of your feminine nature, that we kind of need to lay down the neural pathways for that. We need to lay down these new patternings in our nervous system to be able to, on repeat, experience them and bring them into our lives. That doesn't get to happen when we just stop at the releasing of the tension and the stress and the trauma. This is about, and what next? What does that space get filled with? And so that's a very beautiful aspect to this deep feminine approach. And within this inner teachings that I've been describing it as, there's an actual map, and it helps to actually see it written on a page. I don't have it right now to show you, but there is one. And it's quite extensive in its understanding. So when you can actually map the female psyche, and of course your own personal female psyche, and every single nervous system experience or pattern that you could possibly express or react from or respond from in your life is all on this map. And it can be called a mythosomatic framework, because it's not just this like dry somatic science. It's taught through the lens of some feminine mythology, which is very easy to understand. The women tend to connect with it very quickly and easily because it's relevant to our lives every day, and will be for the rest of your life. And so it's like, once you see this framework, this mythosomatic way of understanding your inner workings, it's an incredibly powerful tool that you have with you for the rest of your life. And once you understand it, once you understand your own, especially, not just the general one, but you really get to see your own, which is what happens in the training. And I'll talk more about the training tomorrow, by the way, on the final day, session 3. This map is something that once you get it, once you see it truly, you cannot unsee it. and you see it playing out everywhere around you. And so it's a pretty incredible contemplative resource. It's a pretty incredible, almost like diagnostic tool. But we invite women to interact with it from a self-reflection space mostly. And anyway, that the fact that all of these feelings and sensations and rich realm of inner experience can be explained quite clearly and simplified on a map that you can see in front of you is very helpful when feeling your way through maybe difficult things that are going on in life. So it helps to bring that cognitive understanding, and it creates this beautiful integration between your mind's intellect and your heart and your body's deeper experience. And I can just think of far too many examples really of how that has been useful for the women that encounter it. Yes, and I will let some of them explain it, and maybe they can share in the comments with these recordings, because there are infinite ways that that ends up expressing itself. You know, the self-awareness that you get to gain from seeing where you are on the map of your female psyche and nervous system. It's it just informs so much of what's going on inside of you, and it really helps to not react in the same ways. That's the main example that I want to use right now. It helps a lot to not stay in the same limited patternings that you've been coming from in the past. It actually shows you, oh, wow, so if I tend to inhabit this range the most, and I can understand that that other range is something that I could develop, then you get to consciously enter into that instead of just spinning out in the same mode that you've been in. And often that happens because everyone else around you is also in that same vibration. And no one's kind of seeing the whole view really clearly. And so it's very empowering to kind of have this eagle glimpse and view of the whole terrain, to place yourself where you are within it. And it opens so much agency from within. It really increases self-awareness. And again, when it's offered in a way that can be understood through feminine mythology, and not just, you know, definitions of nervous system states and what they mean and how they get created. A lot of that theoretical learning, once someone has taken it in, tends to disappear in the detail of it unless you're constantly taking it in. But something different about this is because it engages both your right brain and your left brain, which is the deep feminine way, right? You remember it. You remember it because you encounter it in a way where it makes sense to not just your conscious mind, but your unconscious mind. And being empowered with that understanding that you get to have, and to understand yourself and others through for the rest of your life, is a pretty extraordinary thing. And I've been amazed, if I can just share something personal in here, as, you know, a conduit for this map to come through. And yes, it keeps getting clarified over time through all the women who interact with it as well. But it was really extraordinary to just witness this emerge, because it didn't get like, I didn't sit there and think it up in my own mind. It literally became a very obvious way of explaining what had the level of transformation that has been taking place for years and years through embodiment practice. And to have these specific somatic therapy methods in the deep feminine way that help us to consciously lay down new neural pathways, to consciously create and experience ourselves in new levels of nervous system patterning that is expansive, that is beautiful and full of grace and pleasure, is really amazing. So I'm getting close to the finish time, and I have just a couple more things to share with you before we end for today. Why, again, another few reasons why this deep feminine approach is valuable, or what it can actually do for you, what it allows for in your world as a woman. The degree to which it's shared and you're supported to relate it to yourself personally, and not just, as I was saying in session 1, to help everyone else with, which tends to be the approach in a more cognitive way of learning, that you're there as a practitioner. You have your practitioner hat on, and you are taking education in such a way where you're looking to check off the objectives that are about you as a service provider. So of course that competency is built, and I really take the time for women who happen to be in training to embody the learning and really understand the nuances of sharing it. I love that process. But what I'm speaking to right now is the personal application of it, to the degree that that's encouraged in this deep feminine space is beyond, way beyond what happens in a regular therapeutic kind of training space. And why this is so important is because in the deep feminine context, we're valuing our own relationships, our own families, our own communities and friendship circles. And, women coming into this don't tend to do it just for the professional outcome alone. They want the transformation, they want the growth. And so there have been tools, resources, things that you can hold in your hands even that are about to come next, that help you to integrate this learning, which really means being who you open up to become through this work, and bring that to your relationship, bring that to interaction with friends and family. It's not about doing therapy on them, but it is about opening up a paradigm with them that allows more of you to be expressed, more of you to be felt, more of you to be seen, and them as they're ready to. And so taking this out of the realm of worldly productivity or service, business, or entrepreneurship only, which is a big part of patriarchal programming, right? We're also bringing this home, if you like, and having actual ways, actual approaches and methods that help you to integrate this expanded, more embodied, more empowered version of yourself into your personal life. And a lot of us know that that's where it can make the most difference in the world, if we cared to do it like that, in all the women that are interested in female empowerment work and all the people that are interested in somatic work. If it were applied not just with clients, what else would be possible? So we go a long way in answering that question, basically, in this deep feminine approach. And the last thing I'll say for now is what it can really do for you, what it opens up, what it allows for you in your life. The deep feminine approach is that it centers you in your embodied evolution as a woman while you guide others. And why that's important, and this carries on from what I was just saying before, but this is about the therapist-client relationship now in what I'm speaking to. It allows the next generation to experience women who are in these somatic practitioner roles in whatever professional capacity that you choose to apply it, that they are getting to experience you doing that, not just sharing it as a technique that you learned to help them, but your very presence is something that is transformative for them. That who you have allowed yourself to become in your own space, in your own body, the presence that you have consciously allowed yourself to expand into also really has an impact. And so embodied presence as women, when we get to value the exchange of that, when we get to have more and more examples of that level of embodiment in the world, that is such a force, that is such an impactful presence collectively that gives an example in the way that our bodies can speak it, not just our words, in the way that our presence communicates it, not just a service that we can provide, right? And I might just end those last 2 points and wrap both of them up in the sense that this is about going beyond just individual change or individual gain, which again is what happens when we deconstruct our patriarchal social conditioning and come back to this realm and templating of original wholeness that helps us to remember that we're all here in connection, that the experience of co-regulation of your nervous system and another person, another being's nervous system, another woman, this creates a level of connectedness that when we consciously experience it, creates a different world, different level of relationship with each other than if our orientation were more individualistic, which is what the, overtly done capitalist, colonialist way of being that gets embedded when we don't even realize it. When we get to unravel from that, it gives us a sense of our contribution in ways that are beyond just financial, beyond just your professional title, and bringing it all back to this sense of being an integral part of collective feminine awakening. So I think that is enough for now. And I really welcome hearing how some of these things have maybe touched you if they have. And so if you want to be part of that discussion, I want to mention again to come to the Somatic Feminine community group if you want to, and just maybe connect with what other people are writing and see what comes through for your own expression. And tomorrow is going to be a little more about the actual methodologies that this deep feminine approach to somatics actually teaches, what's involved in this embodied education process, and what exactly would you be learning. And so I look forward to sharing the final session with you in this. And I'm going to invite you, before we complete for now, to once again just take your energy and your eyes and your attention into yourself, into your own space, just a few breaths, a few moments. And if it supports a sense of grounding or comfort, to place a hand or both hands in contact with your body. And letting your breath be free, letting a sigh or a sound come through. Letting these words land deeper than your mind, letting them land under your hands, maybe somewhere in your body where it's like, yes, this is making sense. Yes, I hear this. Yes, I want more of this understanding. And if there is any tenderness in your being from listening to what you've heard today, please take a moment to just hold this part of you with love, with grace, with kindness. And just know that there doesn't need to be a big separation between the profound work of somatic education and your lived female experience. They can be incredibly integrated and incredibly relevant for your life in every way. And that's what I really love to share with women. And so I'm going to leave it here for today. And I look forward to joining you for session 3.